The air in the Carboniferous was wrong. So wrong that striking a match in the wrong forest on the wrong day didn't just light the match, it lit the forest. And not slowly, not the way wildfires move today. Whole landscapes gone in an afternoon. The Carboniferous period ran from about 358 million years ago to about 298 million years ago. 60 million years of swamp, fern forests, and a planet that had taken a wrong turn with its own atmosphere. Coal got its name from this place. Most of the coal you've ever burned was once a tree that fell into a Carboniferous swamp and got buried before it could fully decompose. The trees were piling up, the oxygen was piling up, and something else was piling up too, growing bigger every generation, because the air would allow it. We'll get to those in a minute. Right now you need to understand what the air was actually doing. Today, the atmosphere is about 21% oxygen. That's it. Take a deep breath right now. About 1/5 of what just went into your lungs is the molecule that keeps you alive. The rest is mostly nitrogen, with a sprinkle of argon and carbon dioxide and a few other gases your body ignores. That balance has been roughly stable for tens of millions of years. Your lungs are tuned to it. Every cell in your body is. In the Carboniferous, oxygen levels hit about 35%. Some estimates push the peak even higher. Picture a pie chart of the air you're breathing right now, and then move the slider until oxygen is taking up more than 1/3 of the entire chart. That's the world you're walking into. The other gases haven't disappeared. Something just shoved them aside to make room. And the geography didn't help. In the Carboniferous, the continents were almost unrecognizable. Most of the land on Earth was bunched together in two large masses that were drifting toward each other to eventually become the supercontinent of Pangaea. The equator ran through what is now Pennsylvania, West Virginia, and Ohio. The coal fields of Appalachia exist because that part of North America used to be a tropical swamp sitting right on the equator. The American Midwest was warm, shallow sea. Texas, in places, was underwater. The whole world had a wraparound coastline of swamps and ferns and tree-sized plants that don't exist anymore, soaking up sunlight and pumping oxygen into an air that had nowhere to put it. Before you assume that more oxygen sounds like a good thing, let me put it in human terms. If you took someone who has lived their whole life at sea level and dropped them into the air of the Carboniferous, their body would not know what to do with the surplus. Your body is tuned to 21%. Sustained exposure to a richer mix, day after day, would start to cause problems. Oxidative stress would build up in your tissues. Reactive oxygen molecules chewing away at cells faster than your body could repair them. The eyes would burn, lung tissue would inflame. The longer you stayed, the worse it would get, until eventually your lungs would start to fail in air that should have been keeping you alive. But the lungs are the second worst problem you'd have in that air. The first one is fire. On modern Earth, a forest fire needs a few things: fuel, heat, dry conditions, a spark. Take away any one of them and the fire either won't start, won't spread, or won't last. Even the worst fire seasons in California, in Australia, in Greece, are constrained by the rules of the atmosphere. There are limits to how fast a fire can move, how big it can get, how hot it can burn before it suffocates itself out. Push the oxygen level above 25%, and most of those rules break. Combustion experiments have shown that at about 25% oxygen, even wet vegetation will burn. At 30%, fires consume material that today wouldn't ignite under almost any conditions. At 35%, you don't need a lightning strike to start a fire. Static electricity will do it. A hot day, a dry leaf landing on warm rock at the wrong angle. The forest is one constant low-grade emergency, with the fuse forever lit and the match permanently in the box. And the Carboniferous had no shortage of fuel. The whole reason coal exists today is that this period dumped massive amounts of dead plant matter onto the planet's surface and into its swamps. Trees were everywhere. Ferns the size of trees, horsetails the size of trees, club mosses called lycopods, pronounced helicopods, growing over 100 feet tall, taller than a 10-story building, with trunks that look almost reptilian, scaled and ridged, nothing like a modern oak or pine. And critically, when these trees fell, they didn't decompose the way trees do today. Whether the fungi that break down lignin hadn't fully evolved yet, or whether the swampy climate was burying the wood faster than anything could digest it, paleontologists are still debating. The result was the same. When a tree fell, it sat, it piled up, it got buried under the next tree to fall on top of it. That's where coal comes from. Layer after layer of plants that died without ever properly decaying, compressed by time and geology into the black rock we now dig out of the ground. Now stack that fuel across a continent and run it under an atmosphere that wants to combust on contact. Wildfires in the Carboniferous didn't just burn forests, they burned regions. We can see them in the rock record. Black layers of charcoal preserved in coal seams, sometimes stretching across what is now multiple states. Whole landscapes converted to ash in a single fire season. The skies thick with smoke that probably never fully cleared between one fire and the next. The wind carrying embers for miles, lighting new fires faster than the old ones could die out. The lightning made it worse. The Carboniferous had storms, heavy, tropical, swamp-fed thunderstorms, with all the cloud-to-ground lightning you'd expect from a hot, wet planet covered in evaporating water. A single bad storm over central Florida today can throw down hundreds of strikes in an hour. In the Carboniferous, every one of those strikes hit a planet that had been waiting for it. The lightning didn't need to be especially dry or especially severe. It just needed to land on something organic in an atmosphere built for combustion. The fires that followed would have been hard to count. And that brings us to the part you were already worried about. The part where the things that were breathing this oxygen-rich air had bodies that could only have existed in this kind of atmosphere. The Carboniferous was the age of the giants, not dinosaurs. The first dinosaurs were still tens of millions of years away from showing up. The giants of this world had too many legs. Insects and other arthropods don't breathe the way you do. They don't have lungs. They have a network of tubes called tracheae, pronounced tracheae, that run from holes along the sides of their body, called spiracles, directly into their tissues. Air goes in through the hole, diffuses passively through the tubes, and delivers oxygen straight to the cells. There's no pumping, there's no active circulation. It's pressure and patience. This system works great for a small body. The tracheae don't have far to reach. Oxygen gets where it needs to go before the cells run out. A modern cricket can power a leap that breaks records, and it's still fine. The system scales beautifully right up to the size of a cockroach. The system fails when the body gets too big. Past a certain size, the tubes are too long. Oxygen can't diffuse far enough fast enough to keep deep tissues alive. The animal suffocates from the inside, unless the oxygen level outside is way higher than 21%. In the Carboniferous, with 35% oxygen pumping passively into those same tracheal systems, the rules changed. Bigger bodies became survivable, and evolution, given a permission slip, took it. Meet Meganeura, pronounced Meganeurae, one of the largest flying insects that ever existed. A close relative of dragonflies, with a wingspan of about 2.5 feet, about the width of a small hawk's wingspan, and longer than a baseball bat. A hovering predator with a body about a foot long, working its way through swamp clearings, eating other insects, possibly eating small amphibians, and almost certainly capable of biting through human skin if humans had been around to provide the experiment. Picture a dragonfly. Now picture one big enough to land on your steering wheel and overhang both sides. And Meganeura wasn't even close to the worst one. That title goes to Arthroplura, pronounced arthroplore, a millipede. Read that word again. A millipede. The largest known specimens reached about 8.5 feet long, roughly the length of an adult alligator. Heavy, plated, many-legged. We have its footprints fossilized in stone, found in places like Nova Scotia and northern England, long parallel tracks pressed deep into ancient mud, telling us that this animal didn't crawl, it walked, with weight. The leading interpretation, based on its mouth parts and gut contents, is that it was probably a vegetarian, processing the rotten plant matter of those endless swamps. Probably, because we've never seen one alive, and there's only so much you can tell from the gut of a fossil. What we do know for certain is this. If you'd been standing in a Carboniferous forest and you heard something moving in the underbrush, the thing making the sound might have been longer than you are tall, and there might be more than one of them, and they don't really look like anything alive today. There's Pulmonoscorpius, pronounced Pulmonoscorpius, a scorpion, about 28 inches long, roughly the length of a beagle, with pincers, a stinger, and a metabolism that was almost certainly built for ambush. Walking through the wrong patch of ferns, the wrong patch of leaves, the wrong shadow under the wrong log, and you'd find one. Or it would find you. Whether its venom would have been lethal to a modern human is an open question. Scorpion venom evolved to immobilize prey of certain sizes, and a 28-inch scorpion was hunting things much larger than what its modern descendants ambush in the desert. And in the water, Hibbertopterus, pronounced Hibbertopterus, a sea scorpion, technically a eurypterid, up to about 5.5 feet long, scuttling along the bottom of lakes and rivers, dragging itself through the muck with broad, flattened limbs. Eurypterids had been around for over 100 million years by this point, ruling shallow waters since the Ordovician, and the Carboniferous swamps gave the last great generation of them places to live. So picture this, you're walking through a forest. The trees are taller than any tree in your neighborhood. The ferns are taller than you are. The air is thick, hot, and humid, somewhere around 85 to 95 degrees Fahrenheit in the daytime, with the kind of pressing humidity you only feel in coastal Louisiana in August. You can smell the swamp, decomposition, standing water, sulfur in places where bacteria are doing what bacteria do. The sound is constant, insects drumming and clicking far louder than any modern forest because the insects are bigger and there are more of them. Somewhere in the canopy, a wingbeat, heavy, not a bird because birds don't exist yet, something with 4 wings, hunting. And every now and then, something crosses the path in front of you that has too many legs and is the wrong size to be anything you've ever met. The water is worse. The swamps and rivers of the Carboniferous were full of early tetrapods, the first vertebrates that had climbed out of the water onto land. Most of their relatives were still in the water, getting bigger, getting weirder. Some of them were enormous amphibian-like predators with bodies built like crocodiles and skulls full of teeth that interlocked in patterns nothing alive today uses. Eogyrhinus, pronounced Eogyrhinus, was the worst of them. Up to about 15 feet long in the largest specimens. A swimming predator, lurking in the murky water of the coal swamps, ambushing fish and smaller tetrapods. If you waded into the wrong river in this period, you wouldn't see it. You'd feel the pressure wave first, then the bite. If that's all the Carboniferous threw at you, it would already be the scariest place a human could be dropped. But the air, on top of all of that, has one more trick. You would burn faster. This sounds like a metaphor. It isn't. In an atmosphere with 35% oxygen, the human body itself would be more flammable. fabric on your skin would catch from a stray ember in a way that would not happen at home. Cooking grease on the back of your hand would ignite from a brief spark. Hair would crisp at lower temperatures. The dry leaves you stepped on, the bark on the tree you brushed against, the wooden handle of whatever you might have brought with you, all of these would behave like soaked-in lighter fluid. So picture sitting around a campfire in that air. The way fire moves in the Carboniferous isn't the polite orange flame you imagine. It's bigger, hungrier, less stable. A campfire in 35% oxygen contained inside a ring of stones would still throw sparks aggressively enough to start surrounding material on fire. Sleeping anywhere near it would be a calculated risk. Sleeping with a fire going through the night, the way humans have done for hundreds of thousands of years, would be a survival problem all its own. If a real fire started, a forest fire, you would not outrun it. Wildfires in modern dry conditions can move at 14 miles per hour through grasslands. In the Carboniferous, with its oxygen and its fuel, top wildfire speeds were almost certainly much higher. Fires would crown, jumping from treetop to treetop above the ground. They would generate their own weather, creating winds that sucked oxygen toward the flame and accelerated the burn. The smoke alone, in a fire that big, would suffocate anyone close enough to feel the heat. You'd be dead from smoke inhalation before the flames reached you. Then add this. In any version of this, where you survived the first night, your second night is in a forest where something the size of an SUV with 100 legs is also out there, and the air is still trying to set you on fire. That's the Carboniferous. Not bigger animals, not just stranger animals. An entire planet running on different rules than the one you grew up on. So, how did it end? The Carboniferous ended slowly, and then all at once. Around 305 million years ago, the planet's climate began to shift. The world had been wet, warm, and choked with vegetation. It got drier. The great equatorial rainforests, the ones producing all that oxygen and all that coal, fragmented. Patches of forest got isolated from each other. Species in those patches couldn't easily move between them. Many of them went extinct. This event has a name, the Carboniferous rainforest collapse, and it changed the trajectory of life on Earth in ways we're still piecing together. Among the casualties were many of the giant arthropods. The same passive respiration system that let them grow huge in 35% oxygen made them vulnerable when oxygen levels dropped. Big bodies that worked at 35% stopped working at 30, then at 25. By the end of the Permian, about 50 million years later, the largest insects on Earth were closer to the sizes we see today. Among the survivors of the collapse, sneaking through the fragmented forests, were small, scaly animals with a new kind of egg, an egg with a leathery shell that didn't need to be laid in water, an egg that could be laid on dry land. These were the early amniotes, the ancestors of every reptile, every bird, and every mammal that has ever lived on this planet, including you. The end of the Carboniferous, in other words, is the moment your line of ancestors got the keys to the dry parts of the continent. There's a strange comfort in knowing that the Carboniferous is over, that the air we breathe today isn't trying to kill us with surplus, that a campfire stays inside its ring, that when you walk through a forest, the only thing crossing the path in front of you is, statistically, a squirrel. But the Carboniferous lasted 60 million years. It didn't feel temporary while it was happening. It was the rule of the planet for 60 million years of life that didn't think of itself as a transition. The giant dragonflies didn't know they were going to be smaller eventually. The 8-foot millipedes didn't know they were going to be footprints in stone. The forests didn't know they were going to be coal. We're walking around in the burned-out remains of a different planet. We dig their bodies out of the ground and we set them on fire to power our cities. The oxygen they breathed, the carbon they pulled out of the air, the giants that grew because the air would allow it, All of it is still here, in different forms, doing different things. And the next time you turn on a light, somewhere in the chain that ends at your switch, there's a piece of the Carboniferous still burning. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.